Howdy gamers. In this video I'm going to be talking about the runes that are good for Vayne, not so much like here's the runes to run, but explaining why to run certain runes on her. With Vayne, things are really like set in stone in terms of the keystones that are good for her. The only real options that you have would be mostly the things offered in the precision tree in press the attack, say fleet of footwork, and then maybe like a lethal tempo, right? But the main one that's going to be best for her is going to be press the attack, as it just works so naturally with her kit. Press the attack, you get more damage through auto attacking 3 times, and then all damage that you deal after that is also increased. So naturally, that just works out the best for her. And losing out on that damage is also, you have to make up for it somewhere. And with Vayne's kit, it's harder to do that than not. Something like lethal tempo doesn't work out as well because even though you do get a lot of attack speed with it, it's mostly about getting your 3 auto attacks off initially and then bursting them from there versus getting like say 9 auto attacks off from the lethal tempo proc, as you still have to be able to stay on a target and then actually auto attack them for lethal tempo to gain a lot of value. You also lose out on a pretty meaningful trading tool in press the attack in the bot lane. And then the scaling on lethal tempo isn't as good as well because other champions just use it better. Champions like Varus, Xayah for example, they're going to be dishing out more damage with lethal tempo, even though Vayne does have this 3 auto attack like bonus damage that she gets from her passive. So, and then with something like fleet of footwork, you get healing and then movement speed. It's all right, but the healing is pretty negligible, and then the movement speed also isn't really required because you can get movement speed through Vayne's passive. So if the movement speed was for kiting, you're better off getting that through just like even a minor rune like Nimbus Cloak. You're better off getting the movement speed from that than you would be the movement speed from Fleet of Footwork. So I think that press the attack is the best option for her. The only other keystone that I could maybe think would be Hella Blades. A champion that uses Hella Blades really well is Callista, because Callista has a lot of early trading potential. Vayne, not so much. Vayne wants to get a couple of levels and then start trading, and Vayne also doesn't use the rest of the domination tree that well. She uses Ravenous Hunter okay, but the problem is that with something like Ravenous Hunter, you have to stack it up before it's really meaningful. And then, yeah, if you were to run this in the top lane, it'd probably be okay, but as ADC, not so much, because the trading potential in it, you trade off a lot of just damage whenever your support sets things up, and just a lot of scaling damage with something like press the attack. So I think that press the attack's the best. Really no surprise. So with press the attack, it puts you in the precision tree. With press the attack, hitting an enemy champion with 3 consecutive basic attacks deals bonus adaptive damage based on your level, and then exposes them, increasing all damage they take by 8 to 12% based on your level. So you're going to be increasing your own damage, and then also in the bot lane, your support's damage, maybe your jungler's damage, and then whenever you're team fighting, it could be your entire team's damage. And with most ADCs, whenever you start team fighting, you're going to be hitting the front line, and then whenever you expose the front line, then you increase all the damage that your team's dealing to them as well, so that you can get through the front line faster and then just kill more and more targets. Where it is just on one champion, you do have to be pretty mindful of who you're hitting, but Vayne has that already, where you don't want to be swapping targets because then you're resetting the silver bolts too. So in the bot lane and in the early game, you just get access to more damage that you otherwise wouldn't have with press the attack, and it's really important to have, or else you're just not going to be killing targets that you otherwise could because of the damage that's offered from press the attack. Whenever you get the 3 auto attacks off, and then usually it's just like a Q auto to finish them if your support's dealing like literally any damage at all. So in the lane, it functions as your trading tool and then also just your extra damage source. And then whenever you start team fighting, then it's mostly to kill the front line or any target that you're hitting in general, as it's just more damage. It's as simple as that. It's just more damage. In the precision tree for the secondary runes, you have good options in Overheal and Triumph. If you're playing with an enchanter support, I think Overheal is fine. With Overheal, you gain an excess healing on you becomes a shield for up to 10 plus 10% of your max health, and the shield is built up from 20 to 100% of excess healing from yourself or an ally. So whenever you're hitting, minions will be building this up, and if you have an enchanter support with any heals, then it's also way easier to build up this shield, And the shield helps you trade in lane, as the enemy has to get through this shield before they even start damaging you. So it's like a reward for gaining control over the minion wave so that you can be hitting it without any retaliation from the enemy. And then whenever you do so, you gain this shield, so then you can look to trade on the enemy aggressively, and they have to get through that shield before they're even damaging you. And whenever you have an enchanter support, it becomes even better, because in fights, if they're overhealing you, then they're still providing something with the shielding, and it's just more, you just have so much more effective HP with it. If you're playing with a tank support, I think it loses a lot of value, especially where Vayne's a naturally like defensive laner. If you're playing with any tank support, you're not really going to be getting opportunity to trade on the enemy when you want to with overheal. So if you're playing with a tank support, I think you should look to run Triumph. With Triumph, takedowns restore 12% of your missing health and grant you additional 20 gold. So whenever you actually finish off a target, it's going to give you enough HP to stay in the fight and then probably take down the next one. And that just functions a lot better with tank supports, as you're looking to burst one target and then go to the next one and the next one. And again, not if you don't have the ability to trade in lane, why have a trading tool in a rune with the tank support? So defaultly too, I think I would take Triumph, as it just functions a bit better for Vayne compared to the other ADCs. For the third runes here, you have good options in Alacrity and Bloodline. With Bloodline, Vayne doesn't use it as well because so much of her damage is from her true damage. So, and you're building a lifesteal item first. The lifesteal just really goes to waste compared to other ADCs. It is good on her, but the attack speed becomes more valuable. And no matter how much attack speed you get on Vayne, it's still really, really useful for her. With Alacrity, you're just going to be getting attack speed pretty much for existing in the game, for getting kills and assists, large monster takedowns, monster kills, minion kills, etc. So basically doing anything in the game, you're going to be getting the attack speed built up. It'd be the same with Bloodline too, but I think attack speed is going to be your best bet, as you just dish out more auto attacks, and then the more attack speed you have, the easier it is to maneuver in fights as well, because if your attack speed's slow, then it's easier to catch you out, or it's easier for the enemy to get away. For the fourth rune, you have good options in Coup de Grace or Cut Down. You're really making a decision of how you amplify your damage. With Coup de Grace, you deal 8% more damage to champions who have less than 40% health, and then with Cut Down, you deal 5 to 15% more damage to champions who have more maximum health than you. So if the enemy has like any tanks at all, if they have a Nautilus, a Braum, a Maokai, a Zac, an Ornn, etc., you can look to run Cut Down. But whenever they don't, then Coup de Grace is going to be better. So it's really, really simple. If they have tanks, run Cut Down, and then if they don't, then just run Coup de Grace. And then if you're playing, let's say there's 3 tanks topside. There's like Ornn top lane, Zac jungle, and then a Zac mid for some reason too. Sure, it becomes weird, but I think you should still run Cut Down. Even if your lane was a bunch of squishy champions like Zyra and, I don't know, Caitlyn, then I think Cut Down would still be your best bet, as you're scaling anyways with Vayne, and with Vayne too, you're losing a lot of lanes, so it's not so much about the laning tool that you would get from these damage amplifications. It's more so having the right damage amplification against the right champion that you're playing into. Defaultly, Coup de Grace is the easiest one. It's going to work into either, but when you can, look to run Cut Down. For the secondary runes, your best option is going to be Sorcery Tree. With most ADCs, it's how it is in Season 10, mainly because of Nimbus Cloak. With Nimbus Cloak, after you cast a summer spell, you gain a movement speed increase. It lasts for 2.5 seconds and allows you to pass your units. The movement speed increase is faster the longer the cooldown of the summer spell that you cast. So casting Flash, it's going to be longer than, or you're going to be going faster than if you were to cast Heal. Nimbus Cloak is so incredibly useful for every ADC because of the movement speed that it offers you. Even though Heal already offers movement speed in itself, Nimbus Cloak amplifies that and then makes it so that you can actually get away whenever you're trying to run away, or actually run someone down whenever you're trying to run them down. So regardless of how the situation is, whether it's offensive or defensive, it's still going to be useful. Even in a neutral situation in which you're trying to kite the enemy but then turn for autos, when that's happening really fast, and then Nimbus Cloak is also going to help you because it's going to help you pull the enemy into you because of the movement speed offered, even though you're like clicking back, turning around to auto attack, clicking back, turning around to auto attack. It's one of the best runes for every ADC because of the movement speed that offered, and the utility gained from that is so valuable. So it's really a contest for the secondary runes to try to outweigh that. With Nimbus Cloak, it puts you in the Sorcery tree second, so then you have options in Absolute Focus or Gathering Storm. I think you should go with Gathering Storm. With Gathering Storm, you gain attack damage every 10 minutes until the game ends, so it's infinitely scaling, and since Vayne infinitely scales as well, it's a really easy fit. You could run Absolute Focus, but the amount of AD offered from Absolute Focus, like, very briefly beats Gathering Storm. Like, with Gathering Storm, you're going to have 5 AD at 10 minutes, 14 AD at 20 minutes, and then 29 at 30. So it's like you're briefly going to be beating it around like 28 minutes or so by like 3 AD, but it really doesn't matter at that stage. So Gathering Storm is way more consistent, and missing out on the AD from Absolute Focus at the different timings that you are, it doesn't make a difference, like, ever, especially with a scaling champion like Vayne. You might think of something like Celerity being useful, but it doesn't outweigh Gathering Storm. Even if this movement speed like would do something, which it really doesn't for Vayne, it just doesn't beat Gathering Storm. So the other options you could have in the secondary tree, I suppose, would be like Taste of Blood, Ravenous Hunter. This would give you a little bit more effective HP in lane, and then healing off your abilities, which would also apply to your W passive. My problem with Ravenous Hunter is that you have to stack it up by getting unique kills and assist, because Ravenous Hunter is based on a Bounty Hunter stack. So you have to kill the top laner, that's one. You have to get a kill or assist on the jungler, it's one. The mid lane, the ADC, the support. It's really hard to do that as ADC, especially consistently across multiple matches. So really good luck. Really good luck getting more than the 2 stacks from killing bot lane. And then if that's happened, and then you get the multiple stacks across every other champion in the game, then you've probably won anyways. So this rune's really hard to stack up, and then the reward for doing so is kind of whatever, because usually the healing isn't what matters on Vayne. It's about the damage that you're dishing out, and then your healing and peel is better gotten through itemization or through the right support pick. Like, this compensation through runes just really isn't it. It's super low value and then hard to pull off, and you're also missing out on Nimbus Cloak, the best rune. So good luck, man. Resolve, there's really nothing there. If you were trying to cheese, I suppose you could run Bone Plating and Overgrowth. And then with Inspiration, the like retro runes from like season 9 that people are still running is Magical Footwear and then Biscuit Delivery. Magical Footwear saving you 300 gold on boots, and then Biscuit Delivery giving you a little bit of mana. That's mostly what it does. And both of those just really don't, like, both of those together don't outweigh Nimbus Cloak. And then when you add Gathering Storm to it, it's just a blowout. For the shards, it's going to be attack speed, attack damage, and then armor almost always. If you're playing into a double AP matchup bot lane like Syndra, Zyra, Xerath, Vigar, etc., sure, run the magic resist, but most of the time in the bot lane it's going to be armor. And yeah, that's really it with Vayne runes. I mean, they're really basic. Most ADC runes are, and the only variations would really come in the secondary tree, and then Overheal versus Triumph. If you're playing into like let's say like a Karthus jungle or a pretty meaningful AP threat like Vladimir Fizz, you can consider running Nullifying Orb. Nullifying Orb gives you a magic damage shield when you're low, so that helps you just deal with the burst from those champions. Even if they're not your lane matchup, it's still a pretty useful rune to run. And that's really it. Again, I think that something like Hell of Blades is just like a not so meaningful laning tool. In the bot lane, I think it might be okay in the top lane, as you can get away with having a better trading tool, especially level 1 in the top lane, goes a lot further than it does in the bot lane, because you're usually bullying a champion that can't fight back anyway, so having more damage against them early goes a lot further. And then building up that damage faster is more meaningful. And everything else, I don't see it beating press the attack. So yeah, if this video helped you, leaving a like on the video helps me. You can also subscribe. It's just League of Legends content. Please subscribe. Please. Thanks. I know you clicked it, man. You're clicking it right now. Thanks, man. Real cool. Twitch.tv/SorryNelson. Linked in the description. Love League of Legends. How about you, man? Season 10. Nice.